DVD and Blu-ray update part 2. Ahoy everybody, and welcome to part 2 of this DVD and Blu-ray update. So I had so much to show that I've decided to split it over 2 videos, which I'll release over a couple of days. So just carrying on from where I left off, we are Most Amused, which is a Prince's Trust concert that was shown on ITV in 2008. Reasonable lineup, sort of a mixed bag for me. Rowan Atkinson, Bill Bailey, John Cleese, John Coleshaw, Omid Djalili, Michael McIntyre, Joan Rivers, Robin Williams. This is plus a special guest, but I can't remember who that. Oh yes, plus a special guest, which is Eric Idle. So it's hosted by John Cleese. Lots of funny links by him. He sort of comes on in a wheelchair with 2 glamorous nurses looking after him, but lots of acerbic, biting comments from Cleese. Bill Bailey's excellent as ever. Rowan Atkinson's good. Robin Williams, typical Robin Williams, you know, Flights of Fancy, excellent stuff. Him and Bill Bailey also do a duet, a bluesy duet later in the show, which is good. John Coleshaw, he did a couple of filmed inserts as various politicians of the day, and then he came on, I think, as George W. Bush, if I remember correctly, and did a little speech, which was fine. I quite like John Coleshaw, but he doesn't blow me away. Omid Djalili, I sort of enjoyed a bit more than I normally did. He's got this shtick where he always starts his show coming on speaking in a broad Iranian, I think he's Iranian, accent, and then he suddenly drops it and speaks in his normal London accent, and I'm sort of bored with that. But once he sort of stopped that and got into his proper material, there were some bits that were really, really good and really funny. Michael McIntyre, this is quite early on in his career, so he hadn't got quite so annoying as I find him nowadays, so it wasn't too bad. Joan Rivers I've never really been a fan of. And then, yeah, at the end, they do always look on the bright side of life with Eric Idle. But yeah, enjoyable. So this is a box set of 2 films and a documentary by Stuart Ashens, or Stuart Ashen rather, who has the YouTube channel Ashens. So he's a stand-up comedian who, although I don't think he does much of that anymore, but he talks on YouTube about video games, about pop culture. He buys tatties, you know, from Poundland shops and things like that, and shows that off. He sort of eats, you know, really out-of-date food, all sorts of things he does, but he's very enjoyable, he's very funny, I like him a lot. And he's made 2 films. So the first one was Ashens and Request for the Game Child. So the Game Child being this mythical handheld Game Boy rip-off. And it's a story of him sort of hunting that down and going on a mission with a friend, and it's funny. It's not being a huge gamer myself, there's sort of a lot of it goes over my head, but otherwise I enjoy it a lot. The second one was Ashens and the Polybius Heist, which is a sort of a similar theme. They're after a Polybius arcade game in that one, but for me it sort of had less, you needed less specialist knowledge for it, so I enjoyed that one a little bit more. It was also more recent, so a bit more up to date in some of the topical humour as well. And then there's a Ashens and the Fly on the Wall is a documentary about the making of Polybius Heist. But yeah, this was a box set, limited edition, bought through him, number 2242, and it's signed by Ashens, the director, whose name has just gone completely out of my head, Riyadh Barmania, and the editor, and his name's gone out of my head as well, I do know it, it's silly me, Linton Davies. But yeah, they're very enjoyable. Certainly if you're a fan of Ashens, then do check them out. This is Supergirl. I've always, it's a bit of a guilty pleasure film for this for me, mainly because I adore Helen Slater. It's not great, I'm not going to pretend it is. It's definitely a much poorer cousin of the Superman films, but Peter O'Toole's wonderful in it as well. Faye Dunaway just chews all the scenery. Peter Cook is bizarre but wonderful. But yeah, it's, I can just sit, how long is it? 2 hours odd? Yeah, 2 hours and 5 minutes, and given that Helen Slater is on screen for a large chunk of that, I can quite easily sit and watch it. So that's Supergirl. Another Doctor Who box set, see part 1. This is season 12, so whereas part 1 I showed Tom Baker's last season, this was Tom Baker's first season. So it's Robot, The Ark in Space, the Sontaran Experiment, Genesis of the Daleks and Revenge of the Cybermen. All very strong episodes. Genesis of the Daleks is one of the greatest episodes of Doctor Who, or serials of Doctor Who, ever. Again, lots of really good extras on these. Enjoy a lot. And Tom Baker gets into the role very quickly and has a lot of fun with it very quickly. You've got Sarah Jane in it as well, and Harry. This is Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. So, obviously David Bowie, Tom Conti, Ryuichi Sakamoto, Takeshi Kitano and Jack Thompson of a Nagisa Oshima film. So it's set during World War II in a Japanese prisoner of war camp in Java. So Mr. Lawrence is, Lieutenant Colonel Lawrence is Tom Conti, and he's sort of the go-between between the Japanese and the English. Bowie gets captured and taken to this camp, and the camp commandant has a bit of a crush on him, and so gives him some preferential treatment and is always making sure he's okay. It's basically just about life in the camp, the relationships between the Japanese and the English. Very well done, very well acted. It did drag a bit for me. It's just over 2 hours. It probably could have done with about 20 minutes lopped off it, if you ask me. There's also some flashback scenes as well through Bowie's character. But yeah, by and large, enjoyed. This is True Romance, which I think I've owned on every format. I think I've had it on VHS, certainly got it on DVD. This is a nice Arrow release with a nice book. Nice thick book and a poster. So I picked this up when it came out, being a fan of the film. So this, if you don't know, was written by Quentin Tarantino. It's one of his first scripts. It was sold and Tony Scott directed it, but Tarantino was quite heavily involved still. Even though he wasn't Quentin Tarantino, but, the name by then, he was, just Quentin Tarantino, the jobbing writer. So Christian Slater plays Clarence, who's... It's his birthday and he's gone to watch a triple bill of Sonny Chiba films when Alabama walks in, played by Patricia Arquette, and makes a point of sort of sitting next to him and accidentally spills her popcorn on him, and they get chatting, and before you know it, they go out afterwards drinking and spend the night together. Turns out that she was actually paid to do that by his boss as a birthday present, and she was a prostitute. But they actually, over the night, they've fallen in love, so she wants to escape Drexel, her pimp, played by Gary Oldman in an almost unrecognisable role. Then, I'm trying to think how much I can reveal without spoiling too much. I can't, basically. They end up having to go on a run with a load of drugs and end up in LA, and it's just the story of their relationship and their escape, and yeah, it's hard to say too much, but highly recommend True Romance. Just trying to avoid spoiling it for you. This is Only God Forgives. So this is a Nicholas Winding Refn, whatever you say his name, film. So he directed Drive, starring Ryan Gosling and Kristen Scott Thomas. I liked Drive, and I'm a big fan of Kristen Scott Thomas, and Ryan Gosling is always great. So I wanted to pick this up. Didn't pay a huge amount for it. I think it was in a sale. didn't do that much for me. It looks stunning. Apologies if you can hear a helicopter. It looks stunning. It's very well acted, but it's sort of a lot of style over substance. Basically, he's in, is it Bangkok, with his brother, and they run drugs and betting on kickboxing and stuff like that. His brother's an animal basically, and he gets his kicks from raping underage girls. He's killed sort of in revenge for one of these rapes. So then the mother, played by Kristen Scott Thomas, goes out and wants his murder avenged, but Ryan Gosling knows that actually he deserved to be murdered. And it's sort of a story of a policeman tracking them down, and the relationship with the mother and various other relationships. And I sort of lost track of it about halfway through. It's, as I say, it looked great, but didn't do a lot for me. This is Brotherhood. So this is the third of Noel Clarke's Hood films. Kidhood, Adulthood and Brotherhood. Oh, sorry, Kidulthood, Adulthood and Brotherhood. So ignoring Noel Clarke and what he may or may not have done. And, you know, he's not being prosecuted for anything, I will add, but if he did do what he did, then he's a bastard. But ignoring that, these are an excellent trilogy of films, and this was just as good as the other two. So his character, who runs across all three films, gets released, has been released from jail. That was the second one. He's just trying to, you know, carry on a peaceful life. But his past comes back to haunt him, as they put it on here, and he has to, you know, fight for his freedom. But yeah, really well acted, really well written, very good film. This is the RoboCop remake. I love RoboCop. The original, second one was okay, third one wasn't very good at all. The couple of episodes of a TV series that I've seen mean that the forthcoming release of it that's just been announced won't be going into my collection. Picked this up from Poundland for £2. If RoboCop, the original, didn't exist, this would be alright. But you can't help but compare it to that film, and therefore it's not very good. But watching it in its own right, ignoring the existence of RoboCop, it's a perfectly enjoyable, fun blockbuster film. Couple more. This is Midnight Tango. So this is Vincent Simone and Flavia Cacace, Strictly Come Dancing dancers. They've done a few shows that went to the West End and on tour. They're Argentine tango specialists, and they're sort of loosely plotted dance shows with excellent music. We saw one of them in Southampton. It wasn't this show, it was one of the other ones, but that was excellent. Very enjoyable if you like that. You know, obviously it won't be to everybody's taste, but the only sort of downside, especially watching it like this, it was fine live, but watching it like this, it's just lots of Argentine tango with very little variety. So it's easy to sort of switch off and lose concentration, and because there's no dialogue, or very little dialogue, you know, if you wander, you're not watching the dance. Would be the only thing I would say. But yeah, you know, if you like that sort of thing, it's fine, and I do. And then finally we have Vikings, so the complete first season. So this was gifted to me by Craig Huntley, my good friend, and really enjoyed it so much that I've now got the box set of the whole thing. I got it for my birthday. Haven't watched it yet. It'll be a while before I do, because of my huge to watch pile. But yeah, so this is the story of a group of Vikings basically, and they find their way over to England. It's hard to describe. So Ragnar, he wants to be chief, but there is a chief played by Irish bloke whose name has just gone completely out of my head. it's not mentioned on here anyway. I'll pop it on the screen. Oh, I nearly said it then. No. He's arguing that they can get over to what they believe is it, you know, the land across the sea and raid them. The chief is saying, no, you can't do it, don't do it. They do it anyway, come back heroes, except with the chief, who's obviously pissed off that they've done it. And that's about all I can say, except I was surprised that what happened so early on in the series, is all I can say. But yeah, as I say, enjoyed it a lot, so much so that I stuck the complete series box set on my wish list and got it for my birthday. So there we are, that's us up to date with the DVDs and Blu-rays I've watched since the last update. Not meaning part 1, meaning the update earlier this year. Still got over 200 to watch, so these will keep coming. Thank you for watching, like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks, bye.